Hello and welcome to this training video from the Julian Teaching School Hub. This is the first of 3 videos which are designed to help inform you as induction tutors on how to perform your role and how to communicate with us as your appropriate body. This particular video will cover an overview of what an appropriate body is, an overview of induction itself, and an overview of your role as an induction tutor. To begin though, a quick introduction. My name is Ben Serruys. I'm the Deputy Director of the Julian Teaching School Hub and one of our 2 appropriate body leads. My colleague, Lucy Hipperson, is the other appropriate body lead, and each of your schools will have been assigned to one of us. You can, of course, make contact with anyone you like, but it'll be one particular appropriate body lead who is assigned to your school, and they'll be the lead contact for all things induction related. And a quick overview of what a Teaching School Hub is. Well, these initially were the replacement for teaching schools, but we provide several different services. We provide training, both for student teachers, initial teacher training, for early career teachers. We provide the early career framework program, as well as holding the role as an appropriate body. And we're also a delivery partner for MPQs as well. And a quick look at what induction is. It's now a 2-year period. It bridges the initial teacher training and the further career in teaching. It combines a structured program, I mentioned the early career framework, with the monitoring, support, assessment that goes on in school and is overseen by you as induction tutor. All of this is underpinned by the statutory induction guidance, which I recommend you get your hands on and have it there for reference. At the end of the 2-year period, ultimately you as induction tutor are going to make the determination that your ECT or ECTs has or have passed induction. And what that means is they have fully met all of the teacher's standards, and you are making the recommendation to us as the appropriate body that they should therefore pass. One really important message for today, and something I will talk about throughout the 3 videos, is that the teacher only gets 1 shot at induction. If they fail, they are not permitted to teach in most schools, and they are not given the opportunity to repeat. So it's really important that if a teacher is underperforming, that is dealt with quickly. And that's something I'll address throughout the videos, but primarily in video 3. A quick look at some of the related terminology. For anyone new to this, ECTs, early career teachers, are the replacement for the previous iteration of NQTs, and that's to signpost the shift from the old way of doing induction to the new way, things like having an early career framework program, having a 2-year induction period. The induction tutor, that is your role. I will go into more detail over the course of this video, but in a nutshell, your role is to oversee the logistics of the assessment of the support that goes on for your ECTs in your school. The mentor, whereas previously with NQTs, the mentor was the person who performed lots of the duties of what's now the induction tutor. Now, the mentor is the developmental partner of the ECT. They meet with them weekly in year 1, fortnightly in year 2. They provide support to guide them through the early career framework program, but they are not the person who assesses them against the teacher standards. That's you. Moving to the 4th bullet point, induction coordinator or lead professional. This may not be relevant to your school, but in some schools, there are lots of ECTs, and the role of induction tutor is divided up between more than one person. In that case, there would be one person, an induction coordinator, who oversees the whole induction process in your school and ensures that all those who are involved are conducting their roles well. And I've mentioned the early career framework. This is new to this iteration of induction. It is related to, but sits separate from, the appropriate body. As I've mentioned, we, the Julian Teaching School Hub, do perform those two roles. If you are registered with us for both services, we can deliver the early career framework program and oversee induction as an appropriate body. But the early career framework is the set of evidence-based skills that are an entitlement for your ECTs to learn over the course of those 2 years. And finally, appropriate body, that's us, the Julian Teaching School Hub, who, as I've mentioned, oversee the processes that go on in schools in our service. So what's our role as the Teaching School Hub, and in particular as an appropriate body? Well, we're here to quality assure the induction processes. So we conduct a series of actions to ensure that you as schools have got the support you need to do this well, but also that the ECTs are receiving their full list of entitlements. Here's a few examples of those entitlements. They should have access to that early career framework-based induction program. They should have an induction tutor, you. They should have a mentor. And as you can see on the slide here, we do recommend that the mentor and the induction tutor are different people. We acknowledge it's not always possible, particularly in smaller schools. But the reason for the recommendation is that this gives a really clear dividing line between the assessment role that you hold as tutor and the developmental partner role of the mentor. That's much easier to conduct if there are two people, if possible. We also check that the monitoring within the school, the support you're offering, how you're assessing are fair and appropriate for induction. These are all things we're going to develop and look into further over the course of these videos. We'll look now at the distinctions between your role in school and our role as an appropriate body. It might be worth pausing this video now so you can have a look at what that involves. I'll pick out a couple of things. To generalize, the school conducts the internal training and assessment of the ECT. You make sure that you've appointed all the correct people to support, i.e. induction tutor and mentor. You ensure that the role, the post that the ECT holds is suitable for induction. There's lots of information on that and more in our handbook on ECT Manager in the resources section. And you make sure that the timetable includes the relevant entitlements. For example, the reduction of the timetable of 10% plus PPA in the first year, 5% plus PPA in the second year. We, as an appropriate body, conduct a series of checks before and during induction to satisfy ourselves that the induction processes are taking place. These include scrutinizing your registration when you come on to ECT Manager and when you register with us using a service level agreement. They include the termly formal reports that we'll talk more about over the course of these videos. And they include a sample of school visits to check on the processes that are taking place. Now, this graphic on this slide is going to become very busy, so I'll go through it in phases. It shows us the chronology of the induction period. So we can see there the 6 terms and what happens before. So thinking about this chronologically, what happens first is that you check the suitability of the post. Now, this means that you, as a school employing an ECT, need to make sure that the post they're going to be doing can count towards induction. This means, among other things, the timetable reductions that I've mentioned. It means that they are teaching regular classes. They're not being asked to do ad hoc cover. It means that their posts and the expectations on them for things like planning and assessment are in line with colleagues in your school. Throughout the 6 terms of induction, assuming they're full-time, you as induction tutor are going to observe the ECT half-termly, with the teacher's standards being the rubric against which you make your assessments. You will also, following that, formally meet with your ECT half-termly to feed back what you saw in the observation, to be really clear, remember no surprises, really clear on whether they are at that point or not on track to meet the teacher standards by the end of the 2-year induction period. And you use that as an opportunity to upload and to amend as required their action plan. We ask that all ECTs have an action plan throughout their 2-year induction, and as appropriate, you amend this. A common misconception has been that action plans are only there when we have concerns about an ECT's progress. That's not the case. An action plan should be in place for every single ECT. This allows you to give broader, in some cases more complex support to the ECT, things that, for example, the early career framework might not be concentrating on at this point in time, but you've noticed that it's something that your ECT needs to work on, and you don't want to wait until it comes up in the early career framework program. It allows you as a school to provide more holistic support about the areas of practice that that particular ECT needs. As such, each ECT's action plan should be unique and is unlikely to look similar to an ECT down the corridor, for instance. At the bottom there, the black font shows us when the reports are due. Now, these are termly reports, and that's whether they're part-time or full-time. ECT manager will still prompt you to complete and to submit a termly report. This is known as a progress review in terms 1, 2, 4, and 5, and a formal assessment in terms 3 and 6. The progress reviews are slightly lighter touch. In all of these, you'll need to make reference to the teacher standards to give evidence of how the ECT has met some or all of those standards so far. The formal assessments at the end of year 1 and end of year 2 are more detailed. You'll need to give more evidence and comment on all of the teacher standards to show us how they've been met in full. All of this is part of what we're going to talk about in these videos, but also they are part of the future twilights we hold. We hold termly twilights for you in year 1, and a further twilight at the end or towards the end of year 2. They're designed to help you with certain points in time. So, for example, the twilight at the end of this academic year will support you as induction tutor to perform your role at that time, which notably at that point will be how to submit and complete the final assessment for year 1. At the top of the graphic now, we can see those 2 boxes. Alongside what's happening in your school with the monitoring, support, and assessment, they should be receiving support from their mentor as part of their early career framework program. That is one of the entitlements that we check as an appropriate body. So they do need to be registered and participating, engaging fully with that program and receiving support from the school to do so. As well as the ECT, their mentor will be offered support on that program as well. So they'll be offered to attend different events, which will support them to conduct their role. In a very small number of cases, a school may decide that they wish to develop and or deliver their own early career framework program. That's fine, but it does come with additional checks on the part of us as an appropriate body to make sure that all of the things that should be involved in an early career framework program are involved in yours. If this is something you are considering as a school, then you'll need to let us know as soon as possible, and we'll discuss the feasibility of that. If you're watching this during the academic year, it's likely that you've left it too long to begin that process, but please do have that discussion with us. So let's think about your role as induction tutor. You need to make sure, as I've mentioned a few times, that the entitlements are in place. If you find our handbook on ECT Manager in the resources section, I've created a section towards the beginning where it gives bullet points to show what those entitlements are. You will need to create and then implement a monitoring and assessment program for your ECT that includes the things I've mentioned, the observations every half term, the feedback you're going to give, the additional support you want to put in place that's going to happen in school. You should be tracking the progress of your ECT, notably whether they are or are not on track to meet the standards. All of this should be recorded in a very transparent and open way so that you can access it, the ECT can access it, and we, if we request, can also access it. The best way to do this, we found, is to upload a single document to ECT Manager in the ECT's profile and add into that a link to a locally saved document in which you record everything with that ECT, chronologically, if you like. That will allow everyone to have equal access. And importantly, as I briefly mentioned, if your ECT is having difficulties, make sure that you are intervening quickly, communicating with them what the issue is and how to improve, but getting in touch with us so we can offer further support. Finally, on this slide, you'll need to make sure that your ECT knows how to raise concerns. So while it might be incumbent upon you to tell us if your ECT is not on track, if your ECT, for whatever reason, has determined that the school is not providing appropriate support, for example, those entitlements are not in place, then they have a right and probably a duty to let us know so we can support you to put those things in place. The name they need is Susie Waters, who's our operations manager. It might be worth pausing the screen now to jot down the contact detail there for her. This is something that we ask you to ensure that they have. We will also tell them about this, but it's good if it comes from both of us. We've talked a bit about your role, and it's important now just to contrast that with the mentor, who, as I said, is likely to be someone different, but may not be in smaller schools. The mentor then provides very regular, structured mentor sessions, which in the first year should be weekly mentor meetings. This will look slightly different depending on the choice of early career framework provider you've used, but it would include mentor meetings in which they give targeted feedback or they broker effective support if it's more appropriate. They should be collaborating with the ECT and other colleagues where appropriate, making sure that they do as well as possible on that early career framework program and therefore can make swift progress in their induction. So just to look at a couple of things that can help you, a couple of key reminders. You as induction tutor will need to make sure that you gain access to ECT Manager. Now, we invite you to do this when you get in touch with us, when you register with us. We will send you a service level agreement, which if you are hearing this training, you are likely to have done that, but it's best to check. Upon receiving your signed service level agreement, which includes the names of all the ECTs you wish to register with us, we will invite you to upload your school, your head teacher, your induction tutor, mentors, and of course, ECTs onto the platform. And we request that if there are any changes throughout the year, please let us know as soon as possible. That includes new members of staff. It includes changes of mentor or induction tutor. And very importantly, if that ECT's role changes at any point throughout the induction, let us know because we'll need to make sure that the role is still appropriate for induction and can therefore still count towards it. As I mentioned, we'll ask that you also attend those termly twilights. They're an hour long, usually 4 till 5 p.m. on a weekday. And if you have any concerns, if you're not concerned, but you're unsure, phone us, email us, discuss it. We'll be happy to help. So to finish this video then, some key messages about your role. You assess against the teacher standards. You report to us through ECT Manager. And your record keeping, which includes all of your notes from observations, from any meetings you have together, are transparent, they're open, they're shared. It's good practice to have it signed by the ECT. And as I mentioned earlier, please make that available to us, definitely on request by us if we need to dig into that. But as I mentioned, it's really good practice if we can access their file whenever we need to by you uploading the link to the file on ECT Manager. So that brings to an end this part of the training. I hope it was helpful.